Hello and welcome to a blockbuster episode of the WION Sports Broadband Edition with me, Digvijay Singh Deo. Now, it isn't always that you get a reigning Grand Slam champion on the show, but there's always time for a first here on WION Sports. Delighted to be joined from Minneapolis by Rajeev Ram, 2020 Australian Open doubles champion and also Olympic silver medalist in mixed doubles from Rio. Thank you so much for joining me, Rajeev. I think I must start by asking you, it's pretty late at night over there. First of all, thank you for staying up so late. But how have these last few months been for you?
Yeah, thanks a lot, first of all, for having me on the show. It's great. The last few months have been tricky, no doubt, as they are for everybody else. You know, we kind of came to a standstill in the middle of March. I had my bags packed, ready to go to Indian Wells, and was pretty excited to play there and continue the rest of the tennis season, and then everything just sort of stopped. I thought maybe it would be for a week or two, and here we are in June now. Still haven't competed, and basically the whole world of sport has stopped everywhere. So it's a pretty amazing thing, I must say.
You know, Rajeev, you from Minneapolis, which for us sports fans, we associated it with the Speedway. But even where you are, the cases have been pretty high, hasn't it been? And even though the death count has been a bit low, there's still been lots and lots of COVID-19 cases over there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, all of America, I just heard, is I think close to 2 million cases with over 100,000 deaths, 105,000 deaths or something like that. I mean, it's rampant. I mean, there's no other way to describe it other than a pandemic. I think, you know, everywhere in the world, it's amazing how, the virus doesn't have any, it doesn't matter what color you are, what country you're from, anything. It affects everybody. And it's just an incredible thing.
I was speaking to John Barnes, the former Liverpool captain, last week. You know, just asking him the same thing because he's over there in the United Kingdom, and he was saying that one of the reasons why we've seen very high numbers of casualties and even infection rates in especially UK and America, where you are, is because of what people perceive as their individual freedoms. Now, you compare that to what we're seeing here in India, where the lockdown has been pretty stringent. And even though there's been an explosion of late after they've opened up, during that initial period of lockdown, everything was pretty much shut. Do you think that was one of the reasons as well, that while everything was much more stringent over here, it was a bit more relaxed where you are?
Yeah, sure, it could be. I mean, I don't have any experience with this kind of thing, as probably most people my age don't, but I surely think that's part of it. I think, as we know right now, the virus is transferable from person to person, so it only makes sense that if you've pretty much stayed at home and you've not seen anybody and you've not haven't come in contact with anyone, it's not going to pass, I think as things start to open up, though, all over the world, I think it's possible that we might see some more cases, a bit of a resurgence, if you will, even in some of the places that were better off originally. Because I think the toughest thing about this whole situation is that it's just so much unknown. We don't know. Sometimes they say it transfers off surfaces. Sometimes it's only from person to person. We just really don't know. So it's still a lot of mystery here.
The other thing that's rocking the US right now are these violent protests that are going on after the death of George Floyd, and it's been violent in certain places. It's been peaceful protests in other parts as well, where you are in Minneapolis. How's it been there?
It's been a bit of both, to be honest with you. It's certainly not like Minneapolis's, where George Floyd was from and where that horrible incident happened. But there've been protests, there's been some looting, there's been, some vandalism and some things like that. I don't know that it's been as violent as some of the other places, but it's certainly an incredibly troubling time right now in America. It's something that I don't know, if anyone alive has really seen, between the virus and now what's going on nationwide. It's quite unbelievable. We had a curfew the other night, the last 2 nights, where you have to be in by 8 and stay till 5 a.m. And I don't ever remember that happening. So. Okay.
But Rajeev, you spoke about this being pretty disturbing for you as well. I mean, you're the son of Indian parents. You're a national icon over there in the US, especially after winning that Olympic medal in Rio. Have you ever felt troubled by what you've seen out there in terms of underneath, bubbling under the surface, all this talk of racism and what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it's troubling. I mean, I'm lucky. I don't feel like I've been subjected to it personally, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I think turning a blind eye just because it doesn't subject, doesn't hit you personally is just as bad as saying it's not there. I think it is here. We're seeing it. It's a real issue, and sometimes maybe this is what it takes to really get it to the surface. I don't know, but I certainly don't think it's a one-off. I think it's an issue that we have in this country for sure.
You would agree that it hasn't shown up America in very good light, has it? Especially, there's a lot of politics which has got involved as well over the last couple of days. You've had sports stars across the world sort of uniting to sort of condemn this. Even in your sport, tennis, the likes of Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, all coming out with pretty strong statements. Coco Gauff, Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, even Lewis Hamilton, pretty much not holding back his punches.
No, and it hasn't shown America in the best light, but I also feel like the hardest times bring out the best in people. And I think that's when you see the beauty of what sports and, these athletes all over the world in every sport, it doesn't matter what color, creed, country, whatever they're from, they're supporting the right causes. And I think you see the beauty of sports sometimes in these times is that it doesn't know any borders. It doesn't know any different from person to person. And I think it's a great lesson for everybody else.
Okay, I had to get your reaction on that, but there are other burning issues which are currently going on in the world of sport. You are a great fan of golf, and the PGA Tour resumes next week. But as it stands, we still don't have any word from tennis authorities as to when your season is going to resume.
Yeah, no, first of all, you're right. I'm a great fan of golf. I just played 24 holes, I think, today. But no, we don't have any word. I mean, it's a tough thing, tennis is, along with golf, the most international or one of the most international sports. We have players from all over the world. We have venues all over the world. So, it's not as simple as maybe in America, like having basketball be in one area where all the teams can sort of go and quarantine. It's an individual sport. That's the other thing. So we have a lot of challenges, and I don't think it would be wise for our governing bodies to say something that they couldn't deliver on. So I'm very interested, to be honest, to see what happens with golf, because I think it could be a way forward for a lot of sports, including us. But at this point, we don't have anything as far as a definite return that I feel very confident about.
For you personally, how have you been training and keeping in shape, Rajeev, through all this?
It's been hard, I've been able to find a private tennis court here and there to play some on, safely. Been able to use what I have at home to do some fitness training. But, the toughest thing is we have no timeline. So it's just very difficult to see, what I'm getting ready for and when that's going to be. It's just kind of trying to keep up general fitness activity as much as I can. But I think everybody's in the same boat. I think it's going to be an interesting time if, whenever we do get back to having a real schedule as to what's going to happen.
And the break sort of hit you at the wrong time, didn't it, this forced break? Because you had built up some great momentum, great start to the year, winning your first men's doubles title as well at the Australian Open.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I'd like to think of it positively. I would have been a lot more upset if I'd lost in the finals of that one, because I felt like I would have been right there to win it. And now who knows how long I have to wait until the next major. So the fact that we did win the Australian Open sort of can make me rest a little bit easier, knowing that, okay, at least that, I have won. I still have the momentum, and it's not like I'm the only one who's stopping. Everybody's stopping. Everyone has to stop. So, I mean, feel like at some point we're still going to have a bit of that momentum whenever we do start again. But, there's nothing we can do. Those are all uncontrollables. We just have to go out and do the best we can whenever we do resume playing.
I think, Rajeev, with restarting the tennis season also boils down to a fairness. The PGA Tour ultimately is an American tour. It has golfers from all over the world, including we have one here in India, Anirban Lahiri, who's stuck here, who can't go across because the flights haven't resumed. But the fact is that, the PGA Tour can still go ahead. As far as the tennis tours are concerned, the ATP and the WTA tours, they have players from all over the world, and it won't be fair to resume till each and every one of those players can actually fly in and reach competitions, bypass these quarantine laws, and get there to compete. Don't you think that's the problem with tennis?
I completely agree. And I think that's what makes our sport so wonderful, is that we are so global. It's fair. It's everyone has an equal opportunity to compete no matter where in the world you're from. And I think that is ultimately going to be our biggest challenge right now, is we can't have events. We can't have the US Open, or we can't have, the French Open or anything else that's scheduled right now, if everybody who is qualified to compete can come. And until that happens, I think we're going to be at a standstill.
Okay, you brought up the US Open, so let me take you up on that, because lots of interesting options being thrown about, especially around the US Open. There's talk of actually, mixing two events, getting the Cincinnati Masters also into New York. There's talk of creating this bio bubble for the players as well. As a player, how does that sound to you?
I think it all sounds good as long as we can be confident in our safety and be confident that all of our fellow players can be safe as well. I don't really think it would be the right thing, and I'd hope that they wouldn't go through with it if somebody, for example, from India couldn't come over because of, just like the golfer that you mentioned, just because, a flight situation. And, even if it's one, it still is not fair. So I feel like if it is to go forward, I think we have to all, as players, be fully confident that it's safe, and it also is
the
fair.
Options, Rajeev, and I was reading this up, statements from the USTA officials. The options sound good in theory. They have they're saying that chartered flights to fly players and limited entourages in, no locker room access on practice days, centralized housing, lots and lots of testing. It sounds great, but it will also mean a lot of compromises on the parts of the players.
Absolutely. That I will say, at least for me, I can't speak for all of the players. I mean, I would be willing to make compromises on general facilities and structures and even amount of guests allowed, potentially. But what I wouldn't be willing to make compromises on are safety and, a fairness. I just feel like it's if it's not fair and it's not safe, we shouldn't have it. But everyone's in a different situation. Some people have to travel with children or whoever, and maybe it's not just as simple as having one guest makes it okay. So that's just my own situation, but I think everybody's in a different situation. We have to try to see it from as many points of view as possible.
There are two ways of looking at this, Raji. One, the stand you seem to take. The other is that there are obviously people who will come out and play because there are livelihoods at stake. I mean, we're looking at it from a health and safety point of view, but do you think that without a vaccine, will it ever be safe to play?
Yeah, I don't think you can say it's 100% safe. I think this disease is so contagious, so spreadable. And as in athletics of any kind, you are in close contact with your peers. There's just no way around it, whether it's on the field or court or whatever, or in the locker room or just passing by in the restaurants and this and that at the facilities. So there's just no way to feel totally comfortable and safe. I just feel like there's some bit of risk that everyone's going to have to be willing to take. But if a few or the majority or whatever, a decent amount of numbers say they don't want to take it, then I don't think this tournament can happen, or any tournaments can happen.
This week I was speaking to Daniel Nestor, and he was saying that since most players haven't held a racket for a while, not everyone has been privileged to have a tennis court around all over the world, that it could be very brutal on the players, especially if the tournament goes ahead in those hot conditions, to play best of 5 sets. There is talk now that there could be a best of 3, which is similar for all formats of if the US Open goes through. Where do you stand on that, Rajeev?
I mean, I think, like I said again, I think it's a player's decision. I feel like that doesn't really affect me so much because I'm not a singles player anymore. But I would feel like if I was a few years ago, like I was a singles player in the main draw of the US Open, and someone said, look, we're either having 2 out of 3 sets or nothing, I would be happy with that. It's fine. I think we're all going to have to make some adjustments, but I completely agree with Daniel's point that their fitness is going to be tested, also injuries, things like that. I mean, our bodies are quite conditioned throughout the season to play and hit millions of balls, and we haven't done that. And now all of a sudden you want to try and put in live competition and play at full capacity. It's going to be tough. I think there's going to be some issues with that.
Rajeev, this one of the reasons we want these US Open to actually go ahead is because of sentimental reasons. I mean, you're from America, you would relate to this. The Bryans wanted this one last grand send-off, and as it stands, if the US Open doesn't go through, then their sort of final goodbye sort of goes up in the air, and they deserve that, don't they? They deserve one last grand send-off after what they've achieved.
I mean, they deserve, however they want to stop playing the game, they deserve to do it that way. They're the greatest doubles team of all time. And I think but that just shows you the power of a pandemic. It doesn't think about how good the Bryans are, or how good Serena Williams is, or how good Novak is, how close he is to breaking Grand Slam records, or Rafa, or whoever it is. It doesn't think about any of that stuff. So I mean, I hope for the sake of the game and the sake of the Bryans that they get to play another year, another U.S. Open maybe next year if they decide to do it again, to have the send off they deserve. But yeah, I think a lot of the players have, a lot of history of tennis actually is going to possibly be rewritten because of this.
Yes, that's what even Mahesh told me a long time back. He said that, with this pandemic sort of stopping everything, the likes of Federer and Serena Williams, in fact, could hurt them the most. But, this US Open, they're talking of this bio bubble sort of fly players in and all of that, which we just mentioned. But do you think that this gives an opportunity to tennis authorities to trial out Roger Federer's theory of merging both the tours? The fact remains that the US Open, you have both the tournaments together. Even in Cincinnati, the tournament they won't shift. You play both the men's and women's tours side by side.
Yeah, I mean, I think now is a good time as any to talk about how the tour can change, because I think, if we're going to make changes for the positive, this is the time people can really lay it out, plan it out, think about it, see what would work, what wouldn't. I mean, we share venues all through the year, to be honest. I mean, all the way from Australia, Indian Wells, Miami, Rome, Madrid, Cincinnati, Beijing. There's quite a few, big tournaments that we play together with the women. So, how we would do it on a business perspective, I have no idea. But I think now is a good time for people much smarter than me to sit down in a room and try and figure that out if that's for the better of the sport.
Through this entire period, we've seen stories emerge of hardships for a lot of players. How do you think tennis bodies have reacted to this? All of them sort of got together and created this player fund as well. But are you happy with the sort of response to this pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so new. It's such a strange and unique situation. I think there's no book on it. There's no rule book to say, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. I think any player, you always say, oh, I wish they had done more. I wish they maybe helped more players out. I think the fact that they were having conversations to try and do something is useful. But I think it's really important that we support sort of the next generation, like the people that are coming up to try and play the sport, that they don't lose too much of their incentive to play because of this. I think, we have a responsibility to try and help the next generation carry the sport forward, after we're all done. I mean, it's unbelievable that some of these, because I can't even imagine what it would be like at 20 years old to just, have your tennis season be stopped and your development be stopped. I think they are the ones that are really going to feel the brunt of this for a while. Okay.
There was a statement which came in from former Wimbledon champion Marion Bartoli when she was asked about this entire process, and it sort of has divided the world sport. Her suggestion was that, if you want to really focus on the youngsters and all these players who are struggling, then it's better to just scrap the doubles formats. You're someone who's predominantly played doubles over the last so many years. You're world number 9. Is that statement very uncalled for?
I mean, she's entitled to her own opinion. I fully disagree with it, to be honest with you. I'm not going to say that, she can't say what she thinks. She can absolutely say what she thinks. But, for me, I look at it totally the other way. I think the predominant, the majority of the players in the world that are club players and amateurs play doubles. It's been an integral part of the sport since the sport was created. It actually, I think, is quite a nice complement to singles because you see a team aspect. You see, a totally different discipline. I think it actually adds quite a lot. And I think, if we can be marketed a bit better and if we do a few things better ourselves as players, I think doubles can be standing side by side for singles. So I think scrapping it would be the absolute wrong thing to do.
Fair. Not everyone can be a great singles player. Look at India, for example. I mean, we've had some great doubles players. We've had the likes of Leander Paes, Mahesh Bhupathi, Sania's been out there and won Grand Slam, been world number 1. Rohan Bopanna has won Grand Slam. Let's face it, when you talk about singles versus doubles, let's not forget that Roger Federer's only Olympic gold has come in men's doubles. It's a lot of skill involved.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the Olympics, if you look at Davis Cup, Fed Cup, doubles plays an integral part of it. We have this new ATP Cup. Doubles was huge in that. And I think, you talk about the biggest tournaments in the world, you still have some great players and names who made their name in doubles, really. And I think it's a part of the sport that if it were to go away, I think people don't realize right now how much they would miss it, to be honest.
Talking about Federer, we touched upon this briefly. This current enforced break sort of helps him and Andy Murray, doesn't it, in sort of where they were with their surgeries or injuries. But in the long run, as you were mentioning, in the long run, this won't help, would it? Because the gap is so little in terms of men's singles. And you look on the other side, Serena's been hanging on the cusp of breaking Margaret Court's record for a while now.
He's still, what is he, 38, 39 years old this year, maybe something like that? I don't know. Maybe that's right. I mean, he's not getting any younger. You know, if, you know, he was supposed to play Wimbledon again, it's gone by, going to get canceled. It's probably his best chance to win a major. You know, just more weeks that he's going to have to, you know, forego. And so, yes and no, it will help Serena. I think it definitely doesn't help. I think she's a threat to win any major, and the more majors that go by, the less her chances become. But I don't really think, to be honest, anyone was thinking, oh, yeah, this is great. Let's have a pandemic so I can sit out and heal my body. I think everybody would have been very happy not to have that happen. If, someone like Andy Murray, sure, it may buy him some more time, but I don't think anyone who's a true competitor is looking for that. You know, I mean, he's come back from many things before, multiple times. And so, I just feel like probably hurts some more than others, but it hurts everybody.
Personally, how does this affect you, especially the postponement of the Olympics? Because you won the Olympic medal, silver medal in Rio with Venus Williams. In fact, I was there for that match when you beat Rohan and Sania Mirza in the semis. You know, Venus Williams, as things stand, will be 41 by the time the Olympics come around next time. And she may not be a sure-shot contender to make the Olympic team. You will be, you know, as it stands, world number 9, you're an automatic entry as things stand. So you may probably have to readjust as well and probably relook things at how you want to do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. I mean, I was really, really looking forward to the Olympics this year again, as the rest of the season. But, you know, again, it's just, it is what it is. We have to deal with it. And I'm very excited already to be participating next year. I don't know who's going to be on the team, men or women. I think it's going to be it's a long time from now, and a lot of things have to shake out. But if I do have a spot on the team, I'm very excited to be on the team again.
There's a lot of uncertainty even now over the Olympics, isn't it? Because lots of talk. Will it happen? Will it not happen? Will a vaccine be found? All of that talk. But do you think that's what is frustrating? That there is no definite goalpost out there for all you players to sort of aim for. We're seeing it now in the PGA too. At least they have something to aim for, and we're not seeing that with other sports across the globe. Do you think that ultimately what's going to happen is we're going to have this trial and error process till we sort of get it right?
I totally think that's going to happen. Like I said, there's no rule book. This has never happened before, or not at least in the recent future. Recent past. It hasn't happened. So there's no way to really know what is the right thing to do. Some people are being a bit more cautious. Some people are being a bit more aggressive. You know, if golf goes off and everything's great, I think that'll lead the way to, you know, a lot more sports trying to do it. But, you know, I think the Olympics next year is absolutely no sure shot. I mean, if we don't have a vaccine and this thing blows up again come January, February, I mean, we're going to be in the same situation we were. So I think a lot is unknown. And I think, it's probably the most frustrating thing, you know, outside of the fact that people are actually, you know, people are dying from this. For us athletes, is that there's absolutely no timeline, and we just have no idea when we're going to compete again.
Yes, and that's been the sort of messaging coming in from sports persons, isn't it? That for the last, 3 or 4 months, everyone's sort of been consigned indoors. And this is something they've never been able to adjust to, because of all the people you would expect to have really bustling lives and really, you know, people who are training for the Olympics, they didn't seem to have any moment to pause. Suddenly, they've all been sort of shackled, as someone once told me. We've sort of been like caged animals at the moment. And also what this period has done, Rajeev, is perhaps it's told us to appreciate sport a bit more. We're so used to having sport in our lives every day, watching it on TV, that now that sport's been away for so much time, we've sort of learned to appreciate sports persons even more. But on that note, thank you so much for staying up and speaking to me. It's been a lovely conversation, and hopefully we see you guys all back in action very, very soon. We've missed you. We have missed you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I thank you for getting up, and I appreciate the conversation. Thank you very much.